Good morning, Devils fans. I'm feeling a little bit better today, but still not 100%, but wanted to get this video out to you guys. Where, if you didn't know, I got a little bit into the mud yesterday on the internet. For those of you who are not terminally online, a lot of discussion in the Devils community was around, does this team need to get heavier? Do we need a deterrent that's going to stop other teams from taking liberties with our star players, etc., etc.? Stuff we have heard before about this team, but really ramped up after that Avalanche game. Well, I knew I had my opinions on this topic, possible biases, and unlike most hockey fans, I have recall bias. I watch every Devils game. I watch a handful of other games most nights or every other night. So I watch a decent amount of hockey, but obviously I'm not watching every team, every shift for the entire season. So I can only draw on my experiences and what I know. So I really wanted to go ahead and dig into the numbers around those things to see if I could find any sort of correlation with what a team structure looks like around protecting your players. Real quickly before I jump into that, did want to provide a bit of an injury update as a bit of news did come out today on the team, and it slightly pertinent to the topic of players getting injured. Looks like Nosek is back skating with the team at practice today. No idea if he is actually fully healthy and back and ready to go in the lineup. I hope he is. Preferably, I would sit Tierney, but we'll see if they go that route. Otherwise, no Jack, Nico, or Miller on the ice to start practice today. So let me give a bit of an overview about the structure of how I determined all these numbers, yada, 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 about each team. So I went through a few different websites to look at current injury status of all players. I basically was like, I am not going to dig into every single one of these injuries, try and find replays or information about how all of these guys got injured. So I'm just going to just blanket statement take if a guy was injured from opening night, so no preseason, just opening night of the season and onward, I'm going to count that guy as injured because some of the discourse around yesterday was it's not just the occasional one-off big hit. It's guys feel like they have a green light to go after our guys, and it might not be a single hit, but just a buildup of hits over a full season that's going to take a guy out. Or it might be that one big headhunting hit that's going to take a guy out. So and then there's also a bit of a narrative, that we have a softer team. Our guys can't take hits compared to other guys in the league that can take hits and aren't going to get injured. So really, I just went with, did a guy get injured and still is currently injured? I wasn't going to dig into every injury throughout the year. And I just listed that out for the teams. I'll get into that a bit more as we move on. I then went through, StatMuse did provide a lot of this for me. So if there's any issues with my numbers compared to another site, that's who I went with as my reference. Again, just trying to keep it fairly consistent across the board. So at least comparatively, I have a good baseline with all of these numbers. So I went with hits per game. So this is the average amount of hits a team makes in a given game. So I don't have to worry about a team having 3 more games played than another, just purely a per game basis. And then I also went hits against per game. So how many times are you getting hit in a game? And then I took the differential of those two. Do you hit more than you get hit? Fairly straightforward. I also wanted to caveat that with, where does the team rank Corsi wise? I was trying to find a bit better of possession numbers. How much do you actually have the puck? Because I think you could cycle the puck in the offensive zone a whole bunch, have a full minute 30, a crazy good shift of possession where you're getting banged around a little bit, but maintaining possession, but maybe get a shot or 2 attempts off in that entire shift. And Corsi doesn't really fully capture stuff like that. But I really couldn't find a nice, easily accessible way for me to find just how much do you have the puck on your stick. I know the new NHL Edge website does some like what percentage of your possession is in each zone. That didn't really capture what I was going for either. So I was like, you know what? If I just keep it generic across the board for a team, it should even out over a decent enough sample size. So I went just purely ranked the team by their Corsi. So you have the puck and you're getting lots of shots off. Generally speaking, that team probably has the puck on their stick, whether it's getting it back in the defensive end and moving it up the ice and getting shots off or whatever. It should hopefully kind of average out. Now, if anyone has any suggestions on how to do a stat I might be missing or not thinking of that could do this better, please let me know. But that's what I went with for this exercise. Next, I went with your PIMs rank. So just how many total penalty minutes are you taking? So this isn't per game. So some teams are going to have higher totals just because of games played basis, but just purely what's your number of PIMs? So if you're taking 5-minute majors, 10-minute misconducts, stuff like that, fighting majors, all that, you're going to rack up higher PIMs, obviously. So I just went with raw total there. Where do you rank in PIMs that you get? And so 1 is the team that takes the most, 32 is the least. Now I went with power plays per game. The idea here being how many penalties are you drawing and being able to take advantage of. My idea with including this stat was it wasn't just about, one-off hits that you're taking and maybe you get 1 penalty per game, but you're also not getting hit a lot. It's mostly just to help try and take the full scale of if I take hits per game and hits against per game, the differential there. What's your Corsi look like? All that compared also with how many penalties are you taking a game, also compared with how many power plays are you getting per game. Hopefully that might give a full enough picture of what this topic kind of encompasses, because through the bit of the discourse yesterday, I come to find out that people aren't looking for just a Ryan Reeves type to join this team. They don't want just a goon that does nothing else. And it's not just necessarily about a single player, although some Devils fans think that, bringing in a single player might be able to change the outlook of their vision of this team. But it's more so of a team structure, DNA of the team, the systems of the team. And so, again, I'm more so looking at that holistic view, at least as best as I can determine it, and what that looks like on a per team basis. So I'm not going to crunch all these numbers for you guys going team by team here. If this gets enough interest and people really want, I'll post my full spreadsheet here that I use. You can really, dig into numbers there if you want. But instead, I'm going to talk about what stuck out to me. So from the top, let me just start with the Devils, which I will do a full run of all these numbers so you can kind of get a comparable of where other teams are at. So the Devils currently have 4, maybe as of this morning, only 3 now, guys entered with Nosek. And then obviously we know Nico, Jack, and Miller. We are not the team missing the most guys, but we are up there comparatively. A lot of teams have 3. There's plenty of teams with 0 or 1. There are a few teams with 5, and I'm going to touch on each of those. But Devils currently have 4. Maybe we're down to 3 as of today. So we're actually middling of the pack in both hits for and against. We throw on average just over 16 hits per game, and we get hit just over 18.5 times per game. So differential there is we're at 2.34 more hits against than we are throwing out. Now that's no surprise, as we do rank 5th in Corsi. I kind of brought this point up in my discourse yesterday, was we have the puck more than other teams, so we have more chances to be hit than other teams. Now, generally speaking, that kind of is true looking through this whole sheet, but it's definitely not an exact science there, because there are absolutely outliers across the board. So it is not the most straightforward of stats with that comparison. We also are the 23rd most penalized team, or not most penalized, but most penalty minute team in the league, and we are 7th for most power plays, 7th in the league as far as power plays per game goes. Quick caveat on that one, a lot of teams have the most per game and are tied, so if you find your ranking or close to some other teams, you might be exactly equal to them. I didn't do like tied for rank stuff, I wasn't bothering that. So jumping back into it, our 16 hits per game is fairly middle of the pack. We are not top 10 or bottom 10 in either hits for or hits against. We're basically fairly middle of the road in both of those categories, so we're not getting absolutely demolished in hits. We're also not throwing the most hits. I don't think that's too surprising. Maybe that surprises some people that we're not getting hit the most in the league, but that's kind of where we're at. To give you an idea, again, we're getting hit just over 2 more times a game than we are throwing out hits. So that doesn't really mean too much, obviously, in a vacuum, but how does it compare? Because that's really what this exercise is about, is other teams clearly must be doing it better than we are, because our guys are having liberties taken against them and other teams just don't have that. So I'm going to point out a few teams that stuck out to me, and you can kind of draw your own conclusions. You can agree with me or completely disagree, but I'll just kind of let you know where my head is at. So there were 3 teams that have more injured guys than us. Now, does this mean teams are okay taking liberties against those guys more so than us? Well, those teams are the Bruins, the Sabres, and the Senators. Now, I would probably say at least one, if not 2, if not all 3 of those teams are probably ones that you would say have some beefier, some more snarl in their lineup. Buffalo's a huge team. probably aren't ones you would expect to take liberties. I know people were calling out, why didn't we go headhunting against the Sabres when they took out Nico? So clearly that's a team that must have this reputation that, as I was told, the game plan against us is to go headhunting, go take liberties. That clearly isn't for other teams. Well, each of these guys are missing 5. Oh, well, they go after our star players. They're taking out chums on other teams. Oh, okay. Maybe I'm going to get a bit more into that later. But for actual names, Bruins are missing Lucic, Lacko, Grizzlick, Forbert, and Geeky. Couple notable names, couple not so much. Sabres, we'll stick with the Bruins. So they're throwing 18 hits a game, but they're getting hit just over 20 times per game. For 2, they're getting hit 2 more times. Technically slightly less than we do, but really speaking, they're getting hit differentially just as much as we do. They're only 20th in Corsi, so they have a lot more opportunities to be hit. So maybe, that argument there would be, yeah, there's more opportunities to hit us, less opportunities to hit the Bruins, yet they're still getting hit just as much as we are. They rank 6th overall in penalty minutes. So how I'm using penalty minutes is, you're a team that is not afraid to go out there and throw the body. And again, I know this could be too many men on the ice. This could be delay a game with an over the board. That means nothing for this exercise. But I wasn't digging into every team's number to break those apart. But generally speaking, roughing, high sticking, teams that are going to be much more aggressive, are going to take more penalties, are going to take more fighting penalties, more majors, more misconducts, are going to get those higher PIMs. So if you're higher up on this, probably rule of thumb, you can say the team is more aggressive in their play. And Bruins rank out at, 10th. Bruins are 10th in the league in PIMs, and then 21st in power plays per game. So Bruins are definitely a team you would associate with, not a team you would take liberties against. A team that will take liberties with you with having Marchand. Well, they have guys that are injured. They get hit more than they hit. They rack up a decent amount of PIMs, but still get hit more. So I'm not sure I'm buying quite that argument. Okay. Again, one off. Let's go to the next one. Sabres. They're missing Comrie, Benson, Samuelson, Bureau, and Cousins. Now, that's some names there for Buffalo. They're hitting 16 times per game, getting hit 21.77. They're getting hit just under 6 more times per game than they are throwing out. Just under 6 more. So this team is being somewhat bullied around the ice, and 20th rank in Corsi, so they don't have the puck that much more. They're fairly, bottom middle of the road. For having the puck. So it's not like there's tons of opportunities comparatively to hit them compared to other teams. And they're the 6th ranked team in PIM. So they're not scared to get grimy and dirty, arguably. Again, didn't dig too much into the numbers of what's 6th most PIMs in the league. So why are they so injured? Why did teams take liberties with them when they, why are they being out hit every game when they clearly, don't have those issues and have a bunch of big guys to throw the body, and they do throw the body. But, okay. Next up, I talked about the Senators. Zub, Branstrom, Shabbat, Gregg, and Kastelik. Okay, maybe not all their big guys, but they do have Brady Tkachuk. There's got to be some deterrence there. Well, they throw just under 17.5 hits per game. They get hit just over 21 times per game. So differential, they are getting hit just under 4 more times per game than they are throwing out hits. They are the 25th ranked Corsi team, so not like they have the puck a ton to be hit a ton. Yet they're still hit more than they throw out hits. And 7th ranked in PIM, so a team that's not scared to grime it up or get a little dirty or mush it up and all that. Similar to Buffalo. Why are they getting out hit so much when they don't have the puck more than the other team? Why are they raking up all these penalty minutes? And yet still their guys are getting injured, like Cousins, who's a top flight guy on that team. My argument here is that there is no such thing as a deterrent. It's just, this happens to every team, but Devils fans watch the Devils. We're emotionally invested in the Devils. So when it happens to the Devils, it's much more meaningful to us, and we focus in on that, and we remember all that stuff. We don't remember everything else that happens to other teams. Even if we see the penalty reports come out one day, next day in, we're forgetting about it. So let's keep digging into it a little bit. Okay, so I've talked about a bunch of teams that are getting out hit. All right, what about teams that do a lot more hitting? Well, the biggest differential is actually the New York Islanders. Now, they have a single injury with Horvat, a big name for their team, who is out. Again, I didn't even look up why he's out. Maybe it was a hit, maybe it was a multiple hits, maybe it was literally nothing, not even on the ice. I'm not sure. But, anywho. So they throw just over 20.5 hits per game. They only get hit just over 12 times per game for a differential a little over 8 hits more per game that the Islanders are throwing out. This was easily the biggest number. Next up was 7.5 by the Blues, which I'm going to touch on because their numbers are hysterical. And then it really drops off after those two. They are the 29th ranked Corsi team, so they don't have the puck that much. Hence why they are hitting a ton and not getting hit that much. This is one of those teams where those numbers do line up. They're also the 25th least penalized, well, less amount of total penalty minutes in the league. So they're throwing a bunch of hits, but it's not too dirty. And then 27th for power plays for, so they're also not, getting dirtied hits against them where they're getting a ton of power play time. So what do you draw from that? Well, one of their top guys are out, so clearly, they're not completely avoiding anything, but they throw a lot more hits. And is that why they don't take a ton of penalty minutes either, but they're throwing out hits? Is really my argument there would just be, they don't have the puck that much, so they kind of just get hit in transition and in the defensive zone, and then they rely on Sorokin to bail them out a lot. But they've actually been apparently a very high-flying team this year. So shout out to the Islanders. Very fascinating team to keep tabs on as the season continues to move on. Okay, I'll touch on a couple more high differentials where the hits are going in their favor. Next up, like I said, I want to touch on the Blues. No injuries, right? They got to be doing something right, some sort of deterrent. They're throwing just under 20 hits per game, getting hit just over 12 for a differential just under 7.5 hits in their favor. They are the last ranked team, as in they have the worst Corsi in the league, so they do not have a puck a ton of hits. Definitely a common denominator here. The other team has a puck more, they can throw more hits. They have the least amount of penalty minutes in the league, and they have the least amount of power plays per game in the league. I don't have too much more to comment there. It's just worst Corsi, least amount of penalty minutes, which I guess is a good thing, and least amount of power plays. They play a fairly clean game over there in St. Louis, apparently. No penalties for or against, but they still throw out a good amount of hits, differential-wise, again, when playing competition. So that, to me, is just the other team has the puck more, they throw the body, but there's nothing too dirty happening. Draw any conclusion you want or don't want there from that one. Now I'm going to touch on some teams that you might expect do have deterrents. Vegas was a name I asked a few buddies. What's one team that you think kind of has this team play style, team chemistry, DNA, yada, yada, that is going to make it so other teams aren't going to want to take liberties with their guys? Well, Vegas basically was thrown out a whole bunch. So they got 3 guys injured, and I'd say all fairly significant with Waugh, Haig, and Stephenson. I don't know exactly why or how, but they're out. So they throw just over 20 hits per game. They get hit just over 18. So they are throwing just over 2 more hits per game than they're getting hit. Pretty good. However, they're 27th in Corsi in the league. Fantastic record. Still 27th in Corsi. So they have a lot more chances to hit than be hit. So that numbers kind of tracks and makes sense. And then they're very middle of the road. 15th in both total penalty minutes and 15th in power plays. So what's that really tell you? Well, they got a few guys out with injuries. They're, they take some penalties. They get some power plays. They hit a little bit more, but they don't have the puck that much. So are they a team that's really defending their guys, missing 3 fairly substantial names? They take some penalties. They get penalties called for them. Yeah, hard to kind of tell there. Capitals. They got Tom Wilson, right? Nobody's going to throw a hit against any Capital. Well, they're also missing 3 guys. Dowd, Backstrom, I know that's a bit different. And Van Riemsdyk. Well, Capitals throw just over 16 hits. It's pretty, it's middle of the road comparatively. They only get hit just over 14.5 times per game. So they're actually only hitting just over 1.5 times more per game than the other. Now, surprisingly, they are 11th in Corsi in the league. So maybe that's why they do have a puck on average more than the other team. So less chances to throw a hit. They are actually one of the least total PIMs minutes with 31st in the league. And then they only are ranked 26th in power plays per game. Now, let's throw out some other interesting ones. For me, we'll talk the highest. This is the team that I actually picked out personally I want to touch on. And that's going to be the Yotes. The Coyotes and the Ducks are the 2 teams I kind of want to talk about because they're just so similar and yet so different. So the Ducks have nobody out, but they did have a preseason injury on a bad hit to Chase DeLeo where Radko Gudas was on the ice, their supposed deterrent player. Well, they do throw just over 19 hits per game and only get hit 13 times. So they have a differential of just over 6, one of the better ones in the league, throwing out more hits. Surprise, surprise, they are 28th ranked in Corsi. They don't have the puck a ton, lots more opportunities to throw hits. They are 3rd in total penalty minutes and then 24th in power plays. So clearly a team that is not afraid to muck it up even if they don't get mucked up against. Now, Chase D'Elia was that only hit. Nobody else has. You could say, yeah, well, yeah, D'Elia got hit. Gudas came out and threw a big hit. And now nobody wants to touch their star players. Okay, if that's how you want to label that argument, sure. But then where is that happening for the other teams here on this list? Like, say, the Bruins, like I had said, like the Capitals. What's another good one here? The Senators. But what's another high hit here team? It's going to be the Wild and the Habs are somewhat up there rank-wise as far as hits being thrown out. And yet they also are kind of missing some guys. I mean, on the Wild, Goligoski and Gaudreau. On the Habs, Doc Savard and Harvey Pinard. Both of those teams are throwing just under 3 more hits per game. They're also fairly middling the road, 16th for Wild, 21st for Habs and Corsi. So on average, they're either right there at average or below average and having the puck more. Both up there in PIMs, though. Habs, 2nd most. Wild, 9th most. Habs get 4th most power plays. Wild, 10th most. So these are teams that are not scared to muck it up at all. And yet, they got multiple guys that are out. Now, I kind of want to talk about the star players. Okay, who else are missing big key names? Because that's kind of what a lot of the discourse was around for the Devils. Well, the big one is going to be the Rangers. They are missing Fox with a hit on the knee. Cheadle, Shesterkin, Quick, who have been banged up a bit in the net. They throw 16 hits per game, hit 14.5 times, so they get 1.5 more hits per game. They are 19th in Corsi, so it kind of makes sense. They get a bit more chances to throw hits than to be hit. They are 16th, very middle of the road in total penalty minutes, and then 18th, still fairly middle of the road in number of power plays per game. So they have Jacob Trouba. Why did Fox get hurt? Why did Shesty and Quick get run into? Why is Cheadle out? Again, maybe I missed some notes here. Again, I did not. This is full broad strokes. Hard to say, right? Well, who could we add that would have made Jack, not trip on the ice and hit the boards, as I was joking about? We got to go fight the ice and boards. Well, Nico got hit by a team that apparently gets absolutely pummeled. You can draw your own conclusions here. The other team that has a big guy out is Line. Jackets are getting out hit almost 5 more hits per game. They are 12th in Corsi, so, they do have the puck more than the other team. 27th in total penalty minutes, so yeah, a team that's not really mucking it up too much. 31st in total power plays, though, so they're not drawing many power plays either. Tell me what you guys think. Is there another team on here? I'll do a quick run that maybe stands out to me. Oh, did I touch on the Coyotes? I think I mentioned them and skipped over them. They get hit 6 more times per game than they're hitting, the Coyotes. They are 23rd in Corsi, so they don't have the puck that much, and they're still getting absolutely bombed out there. They have the most PIMs in the league. They take the most penalty minutes, yet they are getting hit over 6 times per game more than they're throwing hits. Why? Why are other teams not scared of this team that is clearly not having any issues mucking it up? The Stars get hit 5 more times per game, but they have a higher Corsi, but they don't muck it up at all. Panthers, that's another team I thought of that, probably big deterrence there with Matty T, just a lot of big bulkier guys there. Well, they're getting out hit more than 4 times per game. 9th best in Corsi, so maybe it makes sense there, but 24th in PIMs. No, I'm sorry, it is 28th in PIMs, 25th for power plays. They're not mucking it up too much. I think that's where I'm going to leave it. I talked at kind of the high ends and the low ends, other guys that are missing star players. Told you where the Devils were at. Yeah, I think I'll leave it there. This video is already probably, I think, the longest one I've done yet. So, was there much you could really draw from this? I don't know. There's some examples in here where you can go with there's a deterrent. There's some examples in here where there's no such thing as a deterrent. And I think just across the board, what it really tells me is hockey's a random game. Lots of hits get thrown. Some guys get injured, some don't. We are emotionally invested fans, and some handle those emotions better than others. and you recall what you recall, you remember what you remember, and typically those emotional moments, those big moments. Recall bias is a real thing. You're not watching every other team, every other shift, every game. Every fan base basically thinks or says this. Leafs basically had a full meltdown in their fan base over the Liljegren hit. Leafs throw the most hits and get hit the most in the entire league. I'll talk about them real quick just because it's Leafs. So they got McCabe and Liljegren out, right? They throw just under 23 hits per game, get hit just under 24 and a half times. So you get hit more than they're hit, and they hit the most in the league. So you get hit just over 1.5 times more per game. 14th in Corsi, 22nd in overall PIMs, and 22nd for power plays. So draw what you want. Let me know what you guys think. I can put this whole sheet out if people want. I think we're going to call it here because otherwise I'm just yelling numbers at you guys more than I already usually do. So we got a big game tomorrow. Capitals, 7 o'clock, finally back on this from that crazy road trip. And so I hope this was a worthwhile video for you guys. I hope maybe somebody took something away from this where you're like, oh, yeah, maybe my biases were getting, my emotions were getting to me in the moment. The league's crazy and stuff happens. Maybe I'll follow up with this after some feedback and see if I can kind of critique this and nail this down even better. So it's going to do it for today, guys. I'll see you all tomorrow morning. As always and forever, let's go.